Lawrence Hicks, Senator Diane Wilkerson, Doris Bunty, Representative Doris Bunty, Representative Charlotte Goulart Ritchie, who hired me right out of college. But you know, so that's what it's about. It's how do we support each other, and we also have our brothers in the House, the men who support us as well in elected office, and you're going to hear, from the chairman of the Massachusetts Black and Latino Caucus, and that's Representative Russell Holmes. But it is an honor really to serve, and to serve as vice chair as the Women's Caucus. And so we're working together, working collaboratively with the Black and Latino Legislative Caucus, the Women's Legislative Caucus, and also our progressive caucuses, coming together, putting our heads around the issues that we all support. Income equality, right? Better education, economic development and opportunity in our communities. So it's an honor to be here with all of you. This is fantastic. Now come back again. You can't just leave and not come back again. So we need you to show up when there are issues happening to testify. But it's an honor for me to present to you Representative Russell Holmes, who has been working really hard, and also want to thank Karen Holmes-Ward for emceeing this fantastic event today. And thank you for your work and your leadership in media, in television, really bringing diversity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Chang Diaz and Senator Dosina Fori. I'm so glad that you pointed out Ms. Doris Bunty, because when I was working at WILD Radio, many years ago, 1979 was the very first broadcast award that I ever received from the Massachusetts Legislative Black Caucus for WILD's coverage of the Pope coming to Boston. Those of you may remember or may not remember that the Pope diverted his route and went around our neighborhood at the last minute, and it was a big to-do. And this lady presented me with the award from the Massachusetts Legislative Black Caucus. Thank you very much. Now, this publication marks the second collaboration for the Center for Women in Politics and Public Policy, celebrating its 20th year in existence on October. And also the Women's Pipeline for Change, celebrating 7 years on the scene. Both organizations support the advancement of women and diversity. And here to speak on behalf of the center is Director Ann Bookman, followed by MassVote's Joel Crawford and Joyce Faribault Bowling from the Pipeline.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you all so much for coming. We really, really appreciate your presence here. This is a historic day for a historic publication. This is what herstory in the making looks like.
Here we go.
Before I tell you a bit about the guide, I want to make a few thank yous. First, of course, I thank the women in the guide. And we are thrilled that almost 30 of them have joined us today. This is very special. This makes this We thank them for participating in the completion of the guide. They are co-producers of the knowledge contained in its pages. Most of all, we thank them for their extraordinary contributions to their own communities and to the entire Commonwealth. They are each trailblazers, and it is our job to ensure that the trail that they started continues for miles and miles and broadens and deepens. Second, I want to thank the Women's Pipeline for Change. This guide is the product, as you've heard from Karen, of a partnership. This is a partnership that is very meaningful to the Center for Women in Politics and Public Policy. We value it deeply, and we hope that it will continue for years. Each member of the pipeline is actually a trailblazer in her own way. And just as this is a first-of-its-kind guide, the Women's Pipeline for Change is a first-of-its-kind organization. I want to thank Maria Jobin Leeds, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, for her amazing leadership in envisioning and supporting the pipeline. I want to thank Alexi Torres Fleming, who is here, the Executive Director of the Access Strategies Fund, for her role in continuing to build the political pipeline. And I want to thank Elena Citron for the pioneering work that she did a few years ago. She is the person who helped to create the original database on which this publication is built. I thank all the members of the pipeline and its board, and in particular, I want to thank Joyce Fairbout Bowling. Is Joyce here? Okay, she's on her way. Okay. Who donated her time, her creative energy, and her expertise to this project. Her thinking and her passion for the issues are on every page. I also want to thank Cheryl Crawford and Suzanne Lee for their support as members of the executive committee of the pipeline. And I'd like to ask all of the women that I've just named to stand so we can express our appreciation. And I hope you'll read the acknowledgments to see the names of everyone. I can't go through them all, but I want to give a special shout out to Krista Kelleher, the research director of who has led this effort with dedication and deep commitment to the issues. And I'd like Krista and everyone from the CWPPP team who worked on this in any way to stand so we can thank you. Very clearly. I want to thank also the entire CWPP board for their enthusiastic support of this project. In particular, I want to thank Digna Scott, who unfortunately couldn't be here, but we have our wonderful vice chair, Charlotte Golar-Ritchie, who is with us every inch of the way. I want to thank, obviously, the Massachusetts Caucus of Women Legislators and the Black and Latino Legislative Caucus for co-hosting this event with us. And a special recognition to Karen, who I think, was a pioneer in the media as a woman of color, has a very important story. We're going to get your story, too, to be told. And so thank you for emceeing this event. Finally, I just want to recognize Ira Jackson in the back, who's here representing UMass Boston. Ira is now a vice provost at the University of Massachusetts and brings greetings from the chancellor and the provost, and had a very special relationship to this publication because when we first conceived it and first started working on it, he was dean of the McCormick School. So thank you, Ira. I want to turn now to the two main themes of this guide. The story in these pages is shaped by two narratives. They may seem contradictory at first, but both are true. One is a narrative of exclusion, marginalization, and underrepresentation. In the entire history of the Commonwealth, we have only had 94 women of color and women from diverse ethnic communities elected to office at local or state level. If you look at the Massachusetts legislature, since it assumed its current configuration, which was 1870, it took over 100 years to have even one woman of color elected. This is unacceptable. Since 1971, we have had 12 women of color elected as state reps, 3 women of color elected as state senators. That's 15 women in total compared to over, I hate to even say this number, over 2,500 other individuals who have been elected to statewide offices. The percent is so small that when we tried to do a graphic representation of this with a pie chart, the part of the pie representing women of color was hard to see. But you can see that they are here. And that is why the guide is so important, to make these women visible, to honor their contributions. Even today, as you've heard, we have only 4 women of color in the Massachusetts legislature. And again, this is totally unacceptable. Why has this happened? What are the causes and what can be done about it? We know the causes are very complex. They include the lack of educational and economic opportunity. They include racism and xenophobia. They include sexism. and they include unconscious bias against women in general and people of color in general that is as pernicious as more overt forms of discrimination. We must name these oppressive forces and examine how we can change the cultural norms that support them and the systemic issues that perpetuate them. We cannot accept the status quo for many reasons. It is unfair, it is unjust, and it's fundamentally undemocratic. We have to understand that at stake here is not only the silencing of the needs and voices of women of color and those they represent, that would be egregious enough, but also we have threatened the very nature of our democracy. It is 2015, and the democracy in the Commonwealth is fundamentally flawed by this underrepresentation. The second narrative in the book is a narrative of accomplishment, dedicated public service, and personal sacrifice. These women, many of whom are in the first couple of rows here with us, these women are pioneers, and they have much to teach us. Each woman in this guide was fighting against the odds when she decided to run for office. She was challenging stereotypes when she asked neighbors for their votes and to open up their pocketbooks. She was beating the odds when she won a seat on the school committee, was elected mayor, we only have one mayor, or a city council member, or a state rep, or a state senator. We know it took guts and grit and deep commitment for each of them to step forward. And their contributions, once elected, have been enormous. And I think this is a very important point. It's not just that they were elected, it's what they did once they got elected. They have led the fight for high-quality education in our public schools, for safety in their communities, homes for the homeless, training and jobs for the unemployed and the underemployed, affordable, high-quality child care, and a life of dignity for our elders. They have made a difference, a huge difference, not just by being elected, but also by fighting for what they believed in and for what they know their constituents need. To wrap up, our state, indeed our country, needs more elected officials like the women in this guide if we are to create an America that reflects the ideals of our democracy and a society that is socially and economically just. It is not just a question of fairness and equal representation. It is a question of what kind of society we want to live in and hand down to our children. We all have a stake in this, every single person in this room, whether we are white or black or Latino or Asian or one of the many diverse ethnic communities in Massachusetts. If we all have a stake in this, let us all work together to change the numbers, change the faces of those elected, and create a stronger democracy in America. I want to give the last word to Shirley Chisholm, the first woman of color to run for president in 1972, and I hope she's not the last. She said, "I am not the candidate of Black America, although I am Black and proud. I am not the candidate of the women's movement of this country, although I am a woman and I am equally proud of that. I am the candidate of the people of America, and my presence before you now symbolizes a new era in American political history." So let's renew Shirley Chisholm's call for a new era and make it stronger than ever. Thank you.
So I'd like to ask Suzanne Lee to join us. We and Joyce Variable, Ileana Centrone, and Ramona Davis, who's representing Marie Jo Belize, to join us here today. I do want to thank the Oversight and Planning Board. for all of their efforts and their collaboration with the Center for Women in Politics and Public Policy in this historic moment in creating this book. I want to thank Joyce Variable here, who has been at the table with the center from the beginning to the end, especially in not only creating that booklet, but also in putting this event together here. You know, we talk about the power of the vote. Why do we want women at the table? See, women need to be at the table because we interact with every system on every level through our family and our children. We understand why it's important. Women get the job done. That's just the bottom line. More collaboratively, you know, and just as a point that I want to bring up, women win at the same rate as men. I'm Cheryl Clyburn Crawford. I'm the Executive Director of Mass Vote, and I couldn't stand here and talk to you about how important and critical it is, not just that women vote, that everybody votes, and that everybody really power. That's all we're trying to do, is help people understand by putting the right people in place. And I just happen to think that it's women. Just kidding. But that we as a group come out and we vote. We're going to be celebrating, as everyone knows, the 50-year, and we're celebrating the 50-year anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And I want to extend a warm welcome to all of you to our event next Monday at the Moakley Courthouse. We're bringing in my cousin, Congressman Clyburn, who was very much a part of that movement, as well as Congressman John Lewis to send in a note. Joyce, I want to turn it over to you to continue to thank the rest of the people that have been at the table with us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. Please attend that event. You know me, ladies. That's an important event that supports the work of Mass Vote. Mass Vote works with our young people. They work across the board. They're nonpartisan, but they get the job done. So we want that supported. I'd like to mention Ileana Centrone, and give her It was Ileana who developed the impetus, the inspiration for which this event was built on when she put together 40 years honoring women of color. Many of you were at that event. And she's been a wonderful man. She's now a graduate of Harvard, but she still reaches out to her. She's one of a number of people around me that I've been coaxing to run for office for a long time, and will continue to do so. I first would like to, if there are any members of our OPB board in here, for you to raise your hand, or the fellows, the 5 fellows, please stand. The pipeline interns, I know that Ruth Ann is here, so we just want to say that this is just a very thrilling occasion to look out and see so many women of color and our allies here and supporting the work that we do. I thank everybody who interfaced with our interns during this year. And I'd like to, again, thank Maria Jobin-Leeds, who without her help and her commitment to diversity, the pipeline would not exist. I'd like to thank Access Strategies, if any representatives from Access. And for not just supporting us with funding, but advice and direction. We totally appreciate that support. And we're going to continue on with our work because we really feel it's important. Most of the women in this book and that we have culled information from tells us that they had no mentors.
that they didn't know this person was running or that individual was running. One of the things I'm most proud of is that there are a number of women in this room who are elected officials who are first. The unfortunate thing is that they're just becoming first, and that's why we have more work to do to encourage women of color to run. And not only to run for office, but to encourage them to take the reins of public administration at every level, because we're losing ground, and I think you know that. But for the women who are in this, room, I want to call out especially to Mayor Wong, who is a steadfast supporter of ours from day one. Thank also CWPPP, the Center for Women and Politics and Public Policy, of which I'm a proud member, and I want to, thank them for their commitment to diversity. I mean, people can talk the talk. These are folks who walk the walk. Krista Kelleher, Denise, and the great and wonderful Ann Bookman. I can't say her name. So thank you very much for your help. Go online and check us out, www.pipelineforchange.us. And keep the support coming because we're doing the work. This is a new organization relatively, and we've already made a dent. We're going to continue to make a dent with your help. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to Ann, Cheryl, and Joyce. We'd like to ask the following elected leaders to come forward. Jane Edmonds, former school committee member from Sharon, elected in 1972 and the first woman to head the Mass Commission Against Discrimination. The first Cape-Verdean woman to serve on the New Bedford City Council. A Republican elected in 2011, the first Asian American to serve. LeBron Martinez, first elected to the And as with so many of the women profiled in the guide, these women are trailblazers. And I'm going to ask each of them to speak briefly to the value of this guide and the importance of building the political pipeline for women of color here in Massachusetts. And also, if you could briefly share what advice you would give to other women of color who may be interested in running or maybe just haven't gotten up the courage yet. So we will start with Representative Keiko Oral.
Good afternoon. It is exciting to be here, to be with this group, and to see the incredible resource that you have in front of you. My name is Keiko Oral. I've come from the town of Lakeville, and I do represent, I'm a member of the Republican Party, and I want to say that within the Republican Party we need to encourage women talking about here today is one that I'm taking to the Republican Party as well. It's about problem solving, it's about working together. I'm here in the House and have been here since 2011. I'm happy to work across the aisle. I'm happy to try to solve problems. And I apologize that I need to go to a meeting, but I wanted to point out on page 9, if you turn to page 9 in your booklet, you'll find that they are giving, this is a huge resource. If you have daughters, friends, neighbors who are interested, the message is carry it on, women of courage and the next generation of leaders. It is up to each one of us to encourage others to get into the pipeline. This shows what we need to do. We need to take risks. We need to embrace public service, prepare, and be ready. We need to know our community and be involved in our community at all different levels. We've got mayors, we've got city councilors, we've got school board members, and so at all different levels, you need to start somewhere, so we need to be involved in our communities. Mobilizing your support. This is a wonderful support network, And I think it's really important to have people around you who are mentoring you and who are helping. To try again. I know some of you have maybe run for office. It's important to keep trying, to persevere. And then also to tell your story, to be true to yourself. I have a story. I'm not going to be able to share the entire story, but part of it is in the booklet, and each one of us has just a little snippet in the booklet about who we are and why we're trying to run for office. My main message is that we need to encourage others. I was in the governor's office today, and there was a woman of color sitting at the desk. I said, "When are you going to run?" She's a student at Suffolk, and she's really interested. And so we talked about this event. We talked about what you need to do to get into the game. And I think that's what we're called to do as women leaders, as women who are in our communities, get others into the game. Representative Pat Haddad has a wonderful saying, and she's on the South Coast. She serves with me in the South Coast region of the state, and she says, "Kick the door open and hold it open for someone else." So that's what I'm looking to do.
And now we'll hear from Jane Edmonds. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege for me to be here. I feel so humbled to be in this amazing list of accomplished people. Thank you to everyone, to our hosts, to elected officials, to aspiring elected officials, to familiar friends that I see here and I haven't seen for a long time, and some new faces that I hope to get to know. I will do my best to be succinct. My husband says it's impossible. So if any of you are interested, you know where to find me. But I was just thinking about things. First, a minor correction, I was not averse in terms of being the first woman of color, the MCAD. But if it were not for that MCAD, perhaps supporting my life early on when I first went to Sharon, I can tell you that, like many other people in this Commonwealth, in spite of having the money to buy a house, my husband and I were confronted with ugly discrimination. And we were told that we could not purchase this model home that we cared about. So long story short, at that time there were testers, fair housing testers. There was a white woman I'd never had a chance to meet, Mrs. Alec, and a lawyer named Dan Aronson that later took up our case and took on the builder, who was then called Mr. Wake Up America. Well, that's another story. You know where to find me, right? Well, so we got into that home with our 4 little children. Why did we come to Sharon? Like anybody else, all we wanted was a good place to live and an educational foundation for our children that would allow them to be independent and dignified and have confidence and feel good about themselves. And we were going to work as hard as we could as parents to make that happen. It was 7 years later in Sharon when I was complaining during one of these coffee clutches with some other mothers about, as great as our schools are, and by digression, I'll tell you that when you hear the campaign rhetoric on the stage, when we hear we want to make America great again, what I say, America is great, and we need to make it better. So at the time, and in my mind back then in Sharon, I looked at the Sharon school system in the same way. It's a great school system, but you know what? We can make it better. And as I started to talk to these other mothers like myself, who looked differently than my packaging, I found out we had a shared concern, and we had a collective voice that resulted in the group saying, this little small group, one of us should run for the Sharon School Committee. And there was a silence. And they pointed to me. And I said, okay. And I said it just that quickly and quickly because I was scared to death. But I wasn't so frightened because I felt the power of these women that were in that circle. And I'll tell you something, we learned something about diversity in the sense that the coalition that we built in Sharon was across every line that you can imagine. And we were told all the reasons why our campaign wouldn't succeed. Now this was in the midst of the desegregation going on in Boston, so that, you know, frankly there were people who were telling me all the time what I couldn't do. And you know what, even to today, my husband said this morning to me, when I told him that we should try to move a piece of furniture to the other side of the house. He says, I don't think so, it's too big. I said, oh yes we can. So I guess I was brought up on that, you know, little engine that could. I think I can, although I changed that because it's we can. And it's really the power of a network that can accomplish anything. So to people out here, if you're thinking of politics, how many want to go get into politics? Well, I'd love to see all the hands go up because there is no reason why you cannot succeed. From my point of view, if I could summarize, a couple of things I learned is you need to reach out to people across lines, because it was just like Mrs. Alec and Dan Aronson who helped us with the MCAD Secure a Home, across lines. That was a network. With my little coffee clutch of women, that was a network. They didn't look like me, but they were different from a religious perspective, age perspective, any kind of cut. Republicans and Democrats, didn't matter. We had on victory night, and by the way, we won by a landslide. We won by a landslide. And 3 years later, when we ran again, we won by a landslide. So I really, truly believe in my heart that if you reach out, develop relationships with people, that's why this book is so important. I'm so amazed that I don't know a lot of the people in that book, and I want to get to know each and every person there. I want to find a stronger role to support the Women's Pipeline for Change and all the efforts that UMass is doing to further the advancement of women, because I believe in that. And I believe that we can make a huge difference, however, even if we don't win. Because what we have, of course, is a collective voice to get our message heard. And as an individual, if I were smug enough to think that people would just listen to me, well, some do. But not even my children all do. But when it's a collective voice, it becomes so strong and so powerful that as long as our message is heard, what could be better than that? So, I think
And now we'll call on Holyoke City Councilor Gladys LeBron Martinez.
Good afternoon. I was just laughing when she said that you moved the furniture in the house. You see this 411, my husband's back there, he cracking